let's go back to the beginning and let's talk about what we have dealt with over the weekend in the AAU event in Louisville, Kentucky. The Run for the Roses Classic started last Thursday. It's going to run through Tuesday. It is a giant event at the Kentucky Expo Center. There are, according to the Run for Roses website, in 2024, last year, there were 88 courts in this building. It is a massive, massive building. 2,000 coaches are there. 2,900 teams come to this event, players representing 15 countries. We had, according to the website, they put out that basically this is an event that brings 200,000 people to the city of Louisville. WLKY in Louisville reporting 40,000 people were in the building yesterday, and that is when a report of an active shooter happened. And when that happened, a call from that the police described as an active aggressor showed up at 2:17 p.m. and the police descended on the building. As we saw, I will show the video again here if we have it. Nope, we've already moved on. As you saw earlier in our muted time, it was just a stampede to get out of the building. The question I have that and trying to parse things from social media yesterday was it sounded like that. It sounded as if people say that they heard gunshots, and what has not been answered was what started the campaign or what started the stampede in the building. Did somebody thought they heard gunshots, yelled guns, and everybody's running? Or was it when the police presence started showing up and they've got guns drawn, running to the situation, that suddenly snowballs and everybody takes off? But one way or the other, you have all of these people heading out of the building in a anything but an orderly fashion, where you've just got players, coaches, parents, families, everybody just grabbing their loved ones and trying to get the hell out of Dodge because they believe there to be an active shooter. Now, the police got there, checked everything out, and the official situation from the police department, the Louisville Metro Police Department, was there were no guns, there was no shooter, and no one was shot. There were no injuries from that. The only injuries, again, were from people fleeing the scene. Now, so number one, great. I mean, obviously, best case scenario. The takeaway from this was that, and as we saw, and we'll go through these again, Kate Popovic-Goss, the Bradley head coach, she was there, said that, and as we talked with her a couple weeks ago, 4 months pregnant. She's there. She said she was safe. She was able to get out of there. She felt horrible for, all the other coaches and players and everybody that was there. There's her quote, the scary situation, grateful for an able body, and, heartbreaks for all the players. You have Rochelle Turner, the Murray State head coach there, saying that so incredibly thankful that my staff, current players, fellow coaches, and future racers are all safe following the safety concern at Run for the Roses. Situations like this remind us how precious life is. Thank God for his protection over everyone involved. The most pointed comments came from Robin Schur, the head coach at Evansville, who posted, thinking of everyone that was at Run today. Our staff will not be returning tomorrow. Players, it's okay to not finish that tournament. The lack of security measures that fit the size and scope of that tournament needs to change. Doesn't matter that there weren't actual shots fired. It exposed what many of us think about when we attend that tournament. It has the potential to be a very unsafe place. So you see that, and it takes about 2 seconds on social media to see the amount of coaches that are like, yep, we're good. Coach Schur, she's going to be in Hamilton, Ohio at another event today up near Cincinnati. A lot of players and coaches are like, yeah, we're not coming back. There's going to be people that make the decision to go back because today yesterday they canceled games after the event. They said the day is over, but they are going to be back again today and back again tomorrow to finish off the deal. This is in the end, this is a multi-million dollar event. To have the reports of 200,000 people coming into that town for this event, to have it cost $30 a day to go in and watch your kid play or just go watch basketball. $85 for the 3 days. And then that's for the Run for Roses Classic that happened from Thursday to Saturday. You want to come back for the Run for Roses Championship from Sunday to Tuesday, that's another $85 for the 3 days to be able to come in. This event brings in money hand over fist. And by all accounts, and again, I'm not going to get overly dropping hammers on this because I haven't been there. I haven't been in the event. I don't know with my own eyes what happens. But the secondhand accounts you get are not really any kind of security. And Coach Schur certainly alluded to it there. There's not bag checks and metal detectors and all of that. Today, there will be bag checks. There will be metal detectors. They will have a clear bag policy and stuff that you just look at it like, how was that not there to start with? I don't understand. And when you go to any major sporting event, and to call this anything but a major sporting event is just flat wrong. With 40,000 people in the building, you go to any major sporting event, you are going to have to go through metal detectors. You're going to have a clear bag. You might get patted down. Now, listen, we all know, we've all been to those events where, the security guard is half looking at the sky and kind of gives you the slightest pat on the shoulder and is like, yep, you're good. Keep going. But there is something. And it doesn't sound like there was anything at this. When you go to the Missouri Valley tournament as a team, a player, a radio guy, that bus pulls into the Enterprise Center and you got to go through security. Fine. When we get off the bus, take all the bags off the bus, everything we've got, whether our radio equipment, jerseys, anything, you got to lay all the bags down on the floor. And you go stand off to the side while the dogs come over and sniff it all out to make sure there's nothing in there that would be a problem. Then you pick up your stuff and then you go through the metal detectors before you're finally able to get into the arena. And we are with the team. We are the ones that should be expected to cause the least amount of problems at these type of events. So to have this event with 40,000 people and have nothing of substance from a security standpoint is one part negligent and the other part malpractice. There's enough money coming in this event to be able to spend. We have 88 basketball courts in this giant building, but 40,000 people that you've got to be able to have some kind of security for this. I also, my heart goes out to these kids that are just there trying to better themselves and try to get seen and try to find a way to get into, get into college. And now this safe space in this, I'm going to play the game I love with the kids I love and all. And now it's like, this is now a hostile environment. And you don't know how that's going to affect all the kids. Some of them, bless them, will be able to brush it off and be right back out to play today. But some of them, that's probably an oversimplification of their response to it and how they're going to be able to bounce back, because no one expects to go play basketball and have a situation like this. Ultimately, again, thankfully, nothing came of it. It was a false alarm. It was a false alarm. But that does not take away the 5, 10, 15 minutes of sheer terror that these players and coaches and families and moms and dads and grandparents and everybody that was there to watch had to go through, of just trying to find your loved ones and sprint out of the building. And I mean, I saw videos of kids, running out of the building. They got their shoes and their bags, and some had to leave stuff in the building, and they're climbing fences trying to just get off the grounds and get as far away as they can. Nobody needs to deal with that. And I just hope that, it's a very easy, low-hanging fruit about these AAU events, that they're cash grabs and they're money grabs and whatever. And I saw that narrative thrown out a lot. However you want to frame them, there is a lot of money coming into that event, period, hard stop. And a portion of those funds needs to go towards legitimate security. When you have 40,000 people, you have to have an infrastructure to be able to handle something like that, where this situation, which again, a false alarm, thank goodness, but God forbid it wasn't, what are we doing? So we will see how the Run for the Roses, again, they've got bag checks today, they've got metal detectors today, but I would imagine in 2026, that's going to be I would only hope that's going to be an entirely different event moving forward. Okay, now we move on to other news of the day, and we will start in the NBA Summer League as Malavi Leons, the former Bradley standout with the Oklahoma City Thunder, playing with the Summer League team, 104-85 win on Saturday, and he played great against Indiana. He played 21 minutes at 16 points, 10 rebounds, 6 of those offensive, 2 steals, 2 assists, 7 of 10 from the field, made a three-pointer, a little bit of everything. And that's what you want to be able to showcase in the league. He has been, he played well last year with the G League team. Now again in the Summer League, it just feels like, especially as OKC, they're the champs. Everybody's going to want to get paid now. There's going to have to be some contract decisions where they can stay under first apron, second apron, whatever from a financial standpoint. This isn't as much, though, about, yes, if Malavai can make it to the league, he's going to be a league minimum guy, you would think, to start. And so from that standpoint, he's a great asset. But the most important thing is what we have seen from him, whether it's been in the G League, whether it's been in the Summer League, dude can play. You saw him at Bradley, you know he can play. And so he is knocking on the door. The time is coming for him to finally get some run in the league. And hopefully that time is coming soon. But he played great on Saturday. Next game for OKC will be tomorrow night, 5:30. You can watch it on NBA TV or ESPN+. Antonio Reeves, the former Illinois State guard, playing for the New Orleans Pelicans. He had 20 points in a loss to the Lakers on Saturday night. 20.6 rebounds, 3 steals. He played well. He's already seen some time in the league, but coming down to get some summer work. Titan Anderson, the Northern Iowa product, did not play on Saturday. If you've watched enough summer league, you know this is how it works. Is that sometimes it's just like, look, we know these 5 guys aren't going to play today. They're going to play again tomorrow, and so tomorrow will be a 9:00 game for the Pelicans, ESPN. Hopefully we'll get to see Titan get a little bit of run there with the Pelicans, but a lot of Valley flavor in the Summer League, as you would expect, as we send a whole lot of dudes out of this great conference into the NBA, even though sometimes maybe they take a little bit of detour before they make it all the way up there. All right, scheduling news now. As Oregon State has released their non-conference schedule. Evansville on there. We knew that. November the 21st, they'll be taking on the Aces. It'll be the Aces and the Beavers down at the Paradise Jam in the Virgin Islands. Again, we knew that. The surprise, if you will, the breaking news out of this schedule release over the weekend. Oregon State will host UIC, the Flames, heading out west on November the 7th. That'll be the Friday of opening week of the season. And that's a good game. That's a very good game for UIC. Last year, Oregon State went 20-13, finished up with a Ken Pom rating of 80, a net of 85. This year, Bart Torvik has them in the 96 range. So this could be, it looks like it's going to be right on that borderline of a quad 1, quad 2 road game for UIC and Rob Eson's bunch. If it can get into, it'll probably be a quad 2 for UIC out there playing on the road. For Evansville, it could end up being if it can get into the top 75 as a neutral game, it could be a quad 1 game. But this is a nice addition to both those team schedules. Again, even though we knew Evansville was already in, but UIC adding that to their schedule on November the 7th. Hall of Fame news from Southern Illinois, as they have announced their 2025 Hall of Fame class. 6 members going in, and the most important for our purposes is the gentleman 2 spots over from the right, and that is Rodney Watson. As Watson spent 21 years as an assistant coach at Southern Illinois, was responsible for 431 wins in his 21 years, went to the postseason 15 times, 9 NCAA tournament trips, 3 in a row in the mid-90s, 93, 94, 95, and that incredible 6-year run from 2002 to 2007, bookended by a pair of Sweet 16 trips. The 9 NCAA trips and the 6 NIT trips, the most of anyone in Southern Illinois history. Worked for 4 head coaches, Bruce Weber, Matt Painter, Chris Lowry, and Rich Herron. Of course, he got his start with him. 7 regular season championships, 4 Arch Madness titles as well. Finally, in 2009, he made the leap to become a head coach for the first time, went to Southern Indiana, spent 11 years there, and won 251 games, got to the D2 national tournament 6 times, a Final Four participant in 2019. And now he is back with the SIU program, getting ready for his 6th season on Saluki Radio, first with Mike Reese and now with Luke Martin. We got a chance last night to have a conversation. And this will be, buckle in. We're already 30 minutes in, thanks to 15 minutes of my lunacy with no sound. But we had a conversation last night that went for an hour. We went into the weeds with his time at Southern Illinois, what got him to SIU, what kept him at SIU, and his legacy with that Saluki program. And certainly he is deflecting to everyone else in his world about all the success he had, but he is now a Hall of Famer at Southern Illinois. He'll be inducted later in October during homecoming festivities for the football program. So understandable if this is one you're going to have to pause and come back and finish, take a bathroom break, probably have to do some work at some point today. But here is our extended conversation from last night with the newest member of the Southern Illinois Hall of Fame. Here is Rodney Watson. Rodney Watson, the newest, soon-to-be inductee to the SIU Athletics Hall of Fame. First of all, congratulations. Secondly, how'd you find out the news?
Well, thank you, Jeff, and thanks for having me on. It's really great to be a part of the Missouri Valley Conference still. I got the news from Tom Weber, who was what we used to call the sports information director. Now they have all these fancy titles, and I media services director or whatever. He's being a great friend. He's the chair of the Hall of Fame committee, and he had given me a call to give me the great news. And I'll tell you, I was fortunate to be inducted into the University of Southern Indiana Hall of Fame last season. And I got that news in Florida from John Marcall, a Murray State grad that I know you know, and a great friend of mine. Is a terrific boss. He was my athletic director. At that time, he caught me completely off guard. We're down in Florida at an MTE, and I got weak-kneed. And when Tom called, it just hits you, and unexpected. But I'm really honored and truly grateful to even be considered.
Do you have to dust off a new speech? Are we pulling the old one out of the closet and just tweaking it a little bit, or have you given some thought already? We're still about 3 months out from the big induction, but where's your head at with the speech?
Well, I've been to their Hall of Fame with Chris Lowry. The last time when Chris Lowry was inducted, and having a last name that starts with W, that is the 5 to 7 minute speech that you prepare, and you get it ready, because by the time that thing goes along, we're going to be there a while. But there's several people to thank, and it's a really unique situation for me. So when we say, what I'll lead with on the Hall of Fame is that when we're in high school, we typically do plenty of dumb things, and that probably goes around the board. And sometimes you do things that can really kind of stick with you for a while. One thing I knew when I was in 8th grade, I was a little guy. I loved to play basketball, but I knew I was very realistic on my ability, and was able to play in junior high and high school and had fun doing that. But I knew that was going to be it. So I went to Eastern Illinois to get a really good education degree, because I knew I always wanted to be a high school coach. Going to my senior year at Eastern Illinois, and I was a manager for Rick Samuels, who was a tremendous coach at Eastern. 26 one-year contracts at Eastern Illinois. And they haven't had, I wish him great luck, but they haven't had near the success that Coach Samuels had in that time. But that's for maybe another podcast, and just how people do things. But you got to check your ego at the door when you're a manager. When you played high school basketball and you're not good enough playing college, but that was probably the smartest thing I ever did. Again, leading into what I was getting at, sometimes you make really dumb decisions that kill you, or it can really set you back in life. That was a really smart one. And then from there, I was going to student teach in the spring of 1982, and my mindset was, I've got to go with someone that really loves a really good high school coach. Who's the best high school coach that I'd ever been around? There's a guy by the name of Ron Herron at Olney High School. I think it's called East Richland High School now, but it's in Olney, Illinois. And I just made a cold call. I called 411. I think the old way of finding information back in the 80s, and it was around Thanksgiving. I thought, I'm going to call Coach Herron and just see if he'd let me come be a student teacher. It's a great phone call. And he said, absolutely, come over. And so I student taught with him in the spring of '82. And that was the second smartest thing I ever did. Something that impacted. I never. You don't know when you're 21 years old how that's going to impact your life, but that was truly impactful, because from there I would meet his brother, who was the high school coach at Benton High School, Rich Herron, who had enormous success, coached guys like Rich Younkus that went to Georgia Tech, that it was the all-time leading scorer until they went on, had, Bobby Clemens, had some other people that overtook him. And then Doug Collins, an NBA great, I think the first pick actually in the NBA draft in '72, played on the Olympics, got knocked out by the Russians. And we know that story, but Rich had coached those guys. I got a high school job after student teaching with Coach Herron. I thought that would bury me. I grew up on a farm. I knew I didn't want to do that. And I go to a little school, Coulterville, Illinois, thinking, well, 2 years, I'll be back on the farm cutting corn out of beans. And as luck had it, and the good Lord had a different plan, we had a couple really good teams, went on to Madison High School in East St. Louis area. Our talent was so good that not even I could screw that up, but had a good run there, and then worked for a guy at Nebraska Omaha. I wanted to get my master's. So I went to Nebraska Omaha, Division II school in the North Central Conference, which is basically now the Summit League, and a guy by the name of Bob Hansen. And he gave me a chance to make $4,800 and get a master's and coach some college basketball, and checked it off my list because I wanted to go back and be a high school coach forever. And in the meantime, on the back end, I got married, found the love of my life in Omaha, and convinced her to move to Southern Illinois, where I worked for a guy by the name of Rich Herron, and the brother of Ron Herron. It was at the suggestion of Ron Herron and Ron Smith, a longtime great coach with Coach Herron, both at Benton High School and at Southern Illinois, that those guys suggested to Coach Herron that I could move into what they called the part-time assistant. And from there, I was half-time. I worked at the Southern Illinois Incubator, which is a small business incubator. I worked on doing business plans, knew nothing about it. And it was that too was a blessing in disguise for later when I become a head coach. Because Jeff, like a lot of people in coaching, we have the misconception. First of all, we've never used our own money. We talked before we came on the air about I have a lawn service now, and I'm in my 6th year, and it's been a great thing. But I've learned a lot about business, and I'll just give all of you people in the NIL world how this really works. If you want to make $10,000 mowing grass, you're going to have about 7.5 months in Southern Indiana to do that. And in order to do that, you have to mow $20,000 worth of lawns. A quarter of that is going to go to the government, both federal, state, and local taxes. A quarter of that's going to go to maintenance and gasoline. And if you work really hard, you're going to get to keep half of it. And that's the formula. And that's whenever I talk to my friends who are in other forms of business, they kind of shrug their shoulders and say, yep, that's kind of the way it is. Well, that job as the part-time assistant with Coach Herron, I couldn't recruit, but I could coach. I could be on the floor and coach. And the other two assistants, Bobby McCollum, Robert McCollum at the time, but Ron Smith had been moved up into that spot. Scott Howard had gone on to Drake for a little bit. He's now in the NBA. And it was Rich Herron. And then we had a couple grad assistants. Doug Novsek was a great player. And Rem Woodruff was another grad assistant. We're all the same age. And we were just digging in together. I was making a whopping $10,000 doing it and couldn't recruit. And I was frustrated with that for 6 years, but was doing that incubator thing, helping people with business plans. And all this ties into coaching, because what I'm about to say was, I think I'm like a lot of guys in coaching, a lot of people that have never had to use their own money to do anything. They've used state money or private money or someone else's money. Yeah. And I really thought if you just follow a businessman around Carbondale long enough, $100 bill is going to fall out of his pocket. And little did I know he was doing the same formula I was. It's that formula. If you want to make X number of dollars, you got to make X times 2, because X of it's going to go to one place, and if you're lucky, you're going to keep the other half. So we started that way, and I said to my wife Carol, we just been married. I'd been at Coulterville High School for 2 years, Madison High School for 2 years, and Nebraska Omaha for 2 years. I said, Carol, I really hope we can stay at Southern Illinois for at least 3, just to show that I'm not a hopper. And man, 21 years later, I finally got an opportunity to go work for John Mark Hall at Southern Indiana, where Steve Newton had previously been the athletic director, and that in itself is another story.
Well, Nebraska Omaha, again, it's D2 at the time, right? With Bob Hansen there. And you said I was ready to go back to go the high school route, and I wanted to do that. What was it that made you make that right turn of, I like college, I'm going to stay in college? And obviously the Heron poll probably facilitated that a little bit, but I'm done with high school, I'm going to go be a college coach.
Well, I wasn't done with high school, but Ron Hare, when I student taught for him, he went to grad school at WashU while he was coaching high school basketball, and his master's, a guy that was taking a master's also was Gene Bartow, and G. Bartow, who we all know, went to Memphis, but he also was at UCLA. Before that, he got the job at Valpo, and he asked Ron Herron to come with him. And this was so impactful for me. And Ron had a family. He was a great family man, wonderful wife and kids. And he just couldn't make that move because he had a family. And, I could just tell in his voice, he didn't take that jump. And that's why I went with Bob Hansen to try it. I wanted to try it. And I loved it. I mean, Jeff, back in 1986, 87, my wife and I were dating. She at the time was an English teacher. And so she would red mark all of my papers that I had to turn. We were taking our masters together, both work on a counseling degree. She became a phenomenal school counselor. I thought I was getting a degree to move me up on the scale. What I later found out, I used that master's in counseling every single day in coaching. But here, Ron Smith called me and said, "Hey, we're going to have an opening. Scott Howard is going to take a job. I'm going to get moved up. What do you think?" And I didn't care what it paid. $10,000. That could have been $10 million. I mean, the time he was making $4,800, Jeff, in Omaha, having the time of my life. Carol was making, she had just previously worked at a parochial school where she was making a whopping $6,000. Then she went on to Millard South and did a little better. But man, I look back on that, man, we didn't have any worries. So we didn't taxes. We didn't pay any taxes. We didn't make enough to pay taxes. But that was a great time. But when Smitty called, and then I talked to Coach Herron, and interestingly enough, a gentleman that's on the SIU staff now, Steve Hawkins, was very good friends, and he was at South Alabama with Robert McCollum, who was on the staff at the time. Smitty was also on the staff, and Robert was pushing Steve Hawkins. Well, Steve Hawkins was driving John Wooden around California. He's a California guy. So he's driving John Wooden around California, working his camps and learning from John Wooden, the real one. And there were times Coach Herron would say to me, I'd screw up, and he goes, I could have hired the guy that was friends with John Wooden, but I took you instead. So why don't you sharpen it up a little bit? And but anyway, Hawk, we talked about that today. The good news was he went on to have a really great career at Quincy College, but also at Western Michigan. Now he's back at SIU helping coach Scott Nagy. And so it's funny how things come full circle. But no, it's just, when the SIU thing come up, it's like, are you kidding me? SIU and the Missouri Valley Conference. And little did I know that Rich was on the hot seat, man. I mean, he had taken over a job that was really in trouble, man. It had come off of some probation, and his job was to right the ship and get Southern Illinois back infused into it. And he did a masterful job of doing that. I came in at great time. We had a really good recruiting class with the hard work of Smitty and Robert McCollum. Those guys were phenomenal recruiters. We took a guy by the name of Jerry Jones. We're going to talk about a little bit, because one of the most impactful games I was ever a part of was at the old Racer Arena. But that's how I got into it, and just fortunate enough that I never went away. They never took my keys. I went through a lot of head coaches and had a chance, something very unique. Had a chance to Carol and I raised our family in Southern Illinois. They went to one school district, and that's unthinkable for a college assistant.
When you finally got to get on the road and be a recruiter after all those years of being the part-time stay-at-home dad, if you will, on the staff there, what was your welcome to college basketball recruiting moment? Do you have one?
There was a bunch of them, but Murray State and Southern Illinois have so much in common. And so I think the people listening to this that are Racer fans primarily are going to appreciate this. It's just, hey man, it was a 5-hour road trip to Chicago, and there were no cell phones. I would get home off the road. I'd go to Chicago maybe a day or two. I mean, there was no budget either, man. We were staying at friends' houses. Maybe you get maybe if you could find a $40, $50 hotel room. But Jeff, the welcome was about the time you drove from Chicago and you got to Effingham, Illinois, and your head's starting to bob. You better pull over and get some fresh air. And then, it'd be late in the night. And I always say my cell phone was in Effingham at a truck stop, which was a payphone. And we, our big thing was calling cards. And, so the big moment was, to answer your question more succinctly, we had a chance, we played in an MTE our first year in Puerto Rico, and we played Toledo. And if we beat Toledo, we had a chance to play Villanova, coached by Raleigh Massimino. And what does this have to do with recruiting? I'm going back to when I didn't recruit, but that was the real moment where, and we were going to Murray State and eating at the Shoney's for $2.99 breakfast because our budget, and you guys were probably the same way. We never talked about it because you didn't want anybody, we wanted everybody to think we had all the money in the world. But, whether it was recruiting on a per diem, our per diem was $17.50 a day, and you had to stick to it. I mean, there was no going over the budget. This stuff now they're doing, it's like, I look at the way these kids eat, man, more power to you. But golly, you're spending more on a meal than we spent on a double road trip, on a swing trip. But that was the big thing with recruiting. It's just you get out there and you dig in. And it was landline phones, man. It wasn't cell phones. And there was no texting. I mean, I think we were the last staff to have cell phones. And you know what? We had a funky locker room. Football was right next to it. The ventilation was terrible. We wouldn't show recruits' lockers. We wouldn't show them our locker room. We had a lot of we had a weight room that the size of this office I'm sitting in right now. You know what, Murray and you guys had Old Racer Arena. We had the arena wasn't pretty. All both teams did was win. Yep. And so another good moment in recruiting. Southern Illinois is no secret. We had a party school reputation. Playboy did this thing in the top 10 schools in the country, and Carol and I moved from Omaha. Omaha's a great city, and she lived there her whole life. And so we moved down that first year, like, okay, let's hear what this party school thing's all about. Let's see what this Halloween thing's all about. So I couldn't recruit that time. We drove back from St. Louis, and the strip is lined with about 50,000 kids. We're like, whoa, they're serious about this deal. So the problem was that the recruiting moment is, especially in Chicagoland, especially in the suburbs. My mother was the same way. My mom said to me, my mother and dad, my dad didn't really say so. My dad's a farmer. He's like, hey, man, wherever you want to go is fine. My mom's like, you go to any place except Southern Illinois. Why is that, Mom? Well, I knew she was going to say, oh, it's a party school. It's like, I got news for you. Your oldest two went to Illinois. That's a party school. I went to Western for 1 year and Eastern. Those are party schools. So anyway, the party school situation. So you go into, back in that day, you went to every recruit's home. Okay. And it didn't matter. Suburbs, the city, didn't matter. You went to everybody's home, and I would start the spiel. And the first thing, Mom, especially in the suburbs, Chicago, I'd get interrupted by the mother and say, well, I'm just going to be honest with you here. I don't think Johnny is really interested. And I go, really? Why is that? And I knew what she was going to say. Same thing my mom said. Well, it's a party school. And I said, well, do you realize that we have a med school, a law school, engineering, a top 50 business school in the country, education? We have everything except marine biology because we don't have an ocean. And the mother would say, "That's have a med school?" And that was it. No more talk about that. All of a sudden, Johnny was interested in our school again because we had a med school. And we have a terrific university and still do. And it was, once you get over that stuff, it was amazing all the things we both didn't have, Murray and ourselves. And we overcame it. And you guys hung banners, man, walking into Old Race Arena and the new place. And man, you do your practice night before the game. You look around at all those banners that all those guys hung. It's like, whoa, they've got some work done here. And that was the real moment. You had to overcome that. Just like now they have to overcome the NIL stuff. Everybody's got more money. Everybody's got more of everything. But you just got to know what you have and you stay true to it. and it seemed to work out.
My math is right. I think your 5th year, you finally get to the NCAA tournament for the first time as an assistant coach, Division I. You're going to the dance, 1993. What was that like for you, just to be a part of what ultimately turned into the first of 3 in a row?
It was really interesting because we had been to 4 NITs, and we had good teams, and you guys had good teams at the same time, and we finally win the conference tournament at Old Checker Dome, where the Blues played, funky Checker Dome, and we beat Illinois State. We'd gotten beat by them in 1990 in a really close game at Redburn Arena, and they now call it SEPQ, I believe. And but the Missouri, what Doug Elgin did, the commissioner of the Missouri Valley Conference, what he did for that league is amazing. And he knew that to prepare the teams for the NCAA tournament, you had to get them. Our loss to Illinois State in 1990 forced the league to go to a neutral site in St. Louis. And with that, they ran that tournament exactly like the first round, just like all the rounds in the NCAA tournament. And that popularity in St. Louis grew. And whether it was at the Checker Dome or the old Enterprise Center, whatever they called where the Blues play now, it just became such an event, the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. And so you win that thing, and I'm telling you now, there was heat on. We had been to 4 NITs. I mean, Coach Herron did things in those 4. He had 3 tough years before I got there. And then because of the great recruiting, especially of Ron Smith, Bobby McCollum, Sam Weaver, and others, and we got some players just like you guys did. And if Coach Herron were to take that record today, he would be a multi-millionaire contract guy. But instead, they want him out. I mean, fans were hungry. They want something different. And it had been, I think, since 1977, so 16 seasons since the NCAA tournament. So we win, and we're thinking, we hear all these great things about the NCAA tournament. And, it's wonderful, just big time and treat you like a king and all this stuff. Well, it's played at the Rosemont Horizon, what it was called then. We draw Duke. I think they're a 3 seed, make us a 14 seed. They got Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley, Chris Collins, Thomas Hill, and they had Cherokee Park sitting on the bench. He couldn't even get off the bench. He's an All-American. They had NBA players that didn't even play until the last 30 seconds of the game. We get up 5-4 in that game. First of all, we stayed in a horrible hotel because we're a 14 seed. It was a Chicago weekend of snow and cold. We basically walked across the parking lot to get there. It wasn't even close to being as cool as the Missouri Valley tournament, quite frankly. We get up 5-4, on Duke. They go on a gigantic run. They blow us out by 35. And by a team that at that time had $150 million in assets on the floor. Grant Hill himself, just by what their initial contracts were, this team was incredible. In their next round, they get beat by Cal. And so anyway, kind of our claim to fame was for a while, if you played SIU in the first round, the next year you're going to end up going to the Final Four, which Duke finally did. But everybody thinks, that NCAA thing. No, it was a letdown. So we come back getting smoked by Duke in the first round, and people didn't even know our names. It's like, okay, all right, way to go. And then the next couple were, they were 94. We go back. We go to Sacramento, and we play Minnesota. Chris Carr's sophomore year, Marcus Timmons' junior year. We have a great Chris Lowry is a point guard. He's as good as any of them. And to show you the difference in styles of now and then, Clem Haskins was coaching Minnesota. They had 5 NBA first-round draft picks starting against us. And it was a tough game. I mean, we were stacked, and they were really good. And Clem was standing up, yelling, and I won't yell because of the podcast, hit him, bust him. Like they were saying that about Carr. That was their approach defensively. They were literally just yelling it. And we're just like laughing. And it's like, hit him, bust, hit him, crack him. I mean, it wasn't, they were hiding it. They were physically big. That was the real early 90s Big Ten stuff that we got a piece of. We make it a good game. When we walk out of there in Sacramento, Chris Carr and Timmons, they had looked like they had been through something, a 15-run fight, which they had been. The next year we go and we play at Texas in Austin, and we play Syracuse. And Shane Hawkins is a freshman, and Carr and Timmons and Paul Lusk was a huge part of all three of those. Now with Matt Painter at Purdue, but Paulie was a big part of it. Ian Stewart, Mirko Pavlovic in those eras. But man, we almost upset the apple cart, about beat another team with 5 first-round draft. We had a number 3 pick in Lawrence Moten, and they beat us by a basket. And their coach wasn't very happy about that. But that's how good both Murray State and Southern Illinois were back in the 90s.
10 years of Coach Aaron, and then the Bruce Weber era starts. You don't always see, when there is sort of a fracture in the coaching tree, that there's retention, and it happens periodically. It's happened at Murray State this year. It happened at SIU a season ago, but you stuck around. How did that process work, that you were retained under Bruce Weber?
Well, that's a great question. And it was a time where I had the chance to go back and be a high school coach. Just by fate, Carbondale High School was open. That's a great job. That was, especially then, it was a great high school job. And the spring of 98, and I was addicted to it, man. I was addicted to Southern Illinois University, a Division I basketball, the Missouri Valley Conference, and I wanted to stay on. And so my approach to it was, I knew that Bruce Weber, who had never been a head coach, who had been a longtime assistant at Purdue with Gene Cady, and really gets a lot of credit for that great success under Coach Cady of being the true backbone of getting things done, a great recruiter, great coach. But I knew it's like the likelihood of me staying on is small. And so I had a chance to meet with Coach Weber. I did not know that Jim Hart, the athletic director at that time, had a conversation with Bruce before my meeting. But because Jim Hart said to Bruce, "You can hire whoever you want. The slate is clean. I would like you to interview Rodney. But keep him, don't keep him. That's your call. But I would like you to give him a look and hear him out." And I'm a man of faith. Sometimes I don't act like it, but especially in practice. But God had a plan, man, and he put something in my head that came off my tongue. And I said to Coach Weber, I said, I had known Bruce because I worked Purdue's camp back when I was coaching at Madison High School. And I had worked and I had known Bruce a little bit. We didn't stay in contact, but he knew who I was. And he was bringing Matt Painter, who had been at a couple of places, Division II school. He'd been at Campbell. He's at Eastern Illinois with Rick Samuels. Did a phenomenal job. And once I got with Matt, there was no doubt Matt Painter had something that most of us don't have. Bruce was bringing Matt. He was bringing Alan Major, who had been with him at Purdue as a student assistant manager role. He was at Pacific at the time, and he had the part-time, or I think I was in a non-recruiting role. I think it wasn't part-time. It was actually full-time, but I couldn't recruit. He goes, so I meet with him and I just said, "Bruce, you got to bring in whoever I get it. I get how this works. You got to bring in whoever you need to bring in. But while you're doing that, I would like to stay here and work with and just help any way I can to help you get your feet on the ground, get things established." And I said to him these words: "I don't know if I'm part of the problem or part of the solution, but I want to help you until you find someone that you need to bring in, and I'll go do something else." And he didn't say anything. And so the funny part of that, Jeff, is about, I don't know, that was late May. And Matt comes in right away. Alan comes a little bit later. And so, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks later, my thing was just, until they tell me to turn my keys in, I'm going to keep coming to work. And man, we burnt the midnight oil trying to get players. We had to get players and had to do all the things you do. And about, I don't know, Matt and I went to lunch about 3 weeks later, and I'm driving and we're coming back from lunch back to what we used to call the arena. Now it's the Banterra Center. Matt goes, "Hot Rod, let me ask you a question." I go, "Okay. Has Bruce hired you yet?" I go, "Well, no, but he hasn't told me to go away." He goes, "Same here. He told me just bring some clothes down and he's never really hired me. So to this day, Jeff, I never was rehired. I mean, Matt was never hired. I was never hired. We just never went away, and somehow we both kept getting paychecks. So that's the way that went down, and that leads to a really cool story that involves Murray State. So we went through a thing where I really want to talk about. Hopefully, you give me a chance to talk about the first 3 encounters with Murray, but under Coach Herron. But right now with the Bruce Weber era in 1998, Bruce's first game of coaching college basketball, first head coaching opportunity, we opened what they called then the Regional Special Events Center with a, we were the first game. And I think it was, it was, I forget when it was, first game. And it was in 98, the fall non-conference. You guys win. You win 65-62. But we won a very, very important stat. Now, obviously, the score is the most important stat. But while you guys had 23 turnovers, we won the turnover war with 30 turnovers. We had 30 turnovers in that game, and which led to a really interesting story, which I won't share on this podcast, to a film session the next day. But, man, that was that was the start of it. We start out 1-3, and man, things were not looking great. But with Coach staying to his conviction of just the way they did things at Purdue, it really translated. And we ended up having a really good year. Believe it or not, I think we were 15-13 or whatever the numbers were. And from there, things got really good after that.
Well, I don't want to get too far away from it. I want to give you the chance. I know there's triple overtime game in Racer Arena to give you the floor to talk about those Racer Saluki matchups under Coach Herron.
Well, the first one was a late non-conference game in February 20th of 88. And you talk about, that first year with Coach Herron, and Coach had brought in some. We ended up going to the NIT. We finished the season 20-14, and we played Murray on a late. I mean, no one played in February, but we did for whatever reason. And you guys had a couple of dudes by the name of Martin and Mann, and yes, trust me, the M&M team. Martin was later become a 31 pick and an NBA player. He gets 31 in 40 minutes, and Don Mann had 25 in 38 minutes. Now, we were fortunate to win that game, but man, you talk about realizing early what this Murray State Racer program's about. We were fortunate to win. We had a good team. You guys did as well, but those two guys, if that's the indication of who you got to recruit to be good, that's a stiff order. So we scheduled another game December 9th again in 88. But again, it's the fall of the next season, same calendar year. And we come over to the old Racer Arena, and Steve Newton is the coach. And what a game. Place is packed. You got the Racer running the court up and down the other side. I think we threw it to him once, running on the sideline. That thing goes to triple overtime. Coach Herron gets kicked out of the game. We have guys fouling out. You guys hang in there. The stats were amazing. Now, we were fortunate to win it. Smitty took over, and I got in the way, but Smitty was able to elbow me enough to coach us into a great victory. And what a great game. But the stats of that game are staggering. So 55 minutes of playing. All right. Just some Frank Allen, terrific player, 35 points in 48 minutes. Greg Coble. I think he went to Three Rivers. We tried to get him, couldn't get him. You guys get him. We are feeling sort of about that because we knew how good he was. He hangs 19 in 42 minutes. Paul King, a great player, 14 points. Popeye Jones, he plays that game. He didn't get a lot of score. I think maybe he might have had 10 maybe and 3 rebounds or something like that. But the stat of the night, we had 3 guys with 20 points or more. Shipley was big time, 27 and 13. Mahan, a great guard, and Freddie McSwain, a great guard. And then Jerry Jones had 19 points and 13 rebounds. He was padding his rebounds because I swear he was throwing the ball off the backboard to get an offensive no, he had 16 boards. But the stat of the night was Chris Ogden. I don't know have you ever looked at this stat sheet at all from that game? I know you've heard of it.
I have, but I have not. No, I have not.
How about this stat? Now, this is incredible. Chris Ogden, 53 minutes. He played 53 minutes, had 16 points or I believe 13 points and 16 rebounds. I mean, that's what he typically got in 2 games. And just when you look at the stats of those games and what a crazy, now we were fortunate to win it, but what I remember most when the game's over, Ashraf Amaya is another NBA player that's in that game. Popeye, of course, is an NBA. There was talent out there, man. And when the game's over, we're fortunate to win. We go into the old Racer Arena. I still want to thank the facilities people for this. Our locker room is about 10 by 10, and it was literally 100 degrees in there. So thank you for the beautiful, warm locker room on a Indian summer night. So, and then, later on, the other one that didn't go our way was the next year, December 14th of 99. I'm sorry, of 89, the 90 season. Again, we had a great year. You guys did too. ESPN. Remember, Jeff, back in those days, all coaches really wanted – they wanted to play on TV. We got to get on TV. Got to get on ESPN. So we take a game on Saturday night, December 14th of 88, 11:10 tip-off. The game gets over at 1 o'clock. You guys win that game. You outscore us by 3 in each half. So you win the game, I think, 83-77. And, again, the Popeye, now Popeye's coming. It's 26 and 20. He had 26 points and 20 rebounds. Folks, you see a guy with 26 and 20 again. Let me know when that happens. Coble had 25 and 10. Frank Allen had 15. But the interesting story that you guys might not remember, we do. The year before that, there was a guy at John A. Logan College by the name of John Jackson. Slender 6'7" kid from Chicago. He had come to our school. Like, he was a student. He was in engineering at our school. And we were stacked. So, and back then we had roster management, so we could only keep so many people, but we just couldn't keep him. Well, he's like, hey, I'm going to go to John A. Logan. And John A. Logan was smart. They saw him playing the rec. They bring him over. They have a great year with him. Well, he ends up going to Murray State, and he was a huge part. I think he had 8 rebounds, 7 points. But believe me, that game was bigger to John Jackson than just playing on ESPN. He shoved it on us, and good for him because he made a great point. But, man, great games back in those days, and, just tremendous talent.
When's your wedding anniversary?
It is October 8th of 88.
Okay, just the coaching brain sometimes, the stuff that takes up the space. It's like, I'm just trying to help you out. Just make sure that we got a few months, but just want to make sure that Greg Coble and Popeye Jones going off in a game in 1988-89 wasn't going to get you in trouble with the missus.
It's great you said that, because just yesterday I thought 37 years, 37. I got to make sure of that. No, that was that. And thank you, because it's, obviously, the computer helps us remember those days, but once you see it on the computer, man, it just sticks. I mean, 26 points and 20 rebounds, and you get by 6 at home on ESPN, and then all you do is later, and you can't, Jeff, I don't know how you feel about it even now, but I know with Xavier Johnson last year, going into his season, once he came off a knee injury, I said to myself, and I said to Luke Martin, Luke, I'm gonna enjoy Xavier Johnson, because as a coach, you never get to enjoy the Ashraf Amayas until they make the NBA, or Troy Hudson, or Chris Carr, or Marcus Timmons is 40, plays till he's 40 overseas, or these Martin and, man, they're good, but they can't be NBA guys. Yeah, they really can. They can be long-term, and they're great. I mean, Ben Shepherd, what he did for the Pacers this year, and he'll continue to do in the NBA. Our league has got to celebrate these guys, because I think we have a little bit of a, I don't know, whatever the word is, where we may have a complex that maybe our guys aren't quite good enough. Hey, they are. They have been. They always are. And you've got really a great class coming now. We've got good players now, but certainly in that era, there were some ballers, and people would come and watch them play.
Some definite dudes for sure. Year 4 with Coach Weber, you not only get to the NCAA tournament, you get to the Sweet 16, kicks off this just 6-year run of just dominance for the Salukis. 2 bookended by a pair of Sweet 16s, just from having been there in sort of the hand-to-mouth days of trying to get this thing built. Yeah, you made the tournament 3 times in the mid-90s, but now it's 6 in a row. It's almost expected. It's not just, hey, we're winning at Arch Madness. We're going as at-larges. We're into the Sweet 16. What was that like just on the day-to-day of just kind of the building pressure cooker of trying to sustain that level of excellence you guys had built
in that 6 year
with 3 different head coaches from Weber to Painter to Lowry as well.
Yeah. In that stretch, I think I could speak for all the coaches. We never went into a season thinking, well, we're going to be an NCAA team. Just how deep can we go? And I get on Mike Reese, the longtime legend, great radio guy, and he'd talk about those things. I go, hold on, bud. You weren't exactly pumping us in the preseason about we're a lock to the NCAA tournament. And he would agree to that. Again, it comes back to that Missouri Valley thing. And you also know that the great equalizer is an injury. And so we had so much of, I talked about things we didn't have in '88. We didn't have cell phones. We had calling cards. We didn't have a great locker room back then. We didn't have anything that great. We had great players, but we had great people in our facility. Ed Thompson is the unsung hero, our athletic trainer. Other than Abel Schroeder in one area, we had a Jones fracture, the broken 5th metatarsal. He had to be out for 8 weeks. I don't know if we ever lost a guy except for Matt Shaw for one game in the NCAA tournament. And those people that, we had such great people, facilities people, and our secretary, Nancy Dennison. No, this isn't just like a kumbaya moment. It's like these people were critical because Nancy Dennison kept our chaos together. Bruce, kid, we'd have dealer cars when he first got there. We were driving. She had a sweet Lincoln. We were driving recruits around on that and acting like it was ours. And there's a lot of those stories go with that stuff. But the people in the building, Tom Weber, who was Fred Huff, the SID, who gave us. He laid the footprint out for Jack Hart. Why did he would tell you if you'd listen or ask him? This is why Jack Hartman won. Now, this is why these guys won, but you got to ask him the question. He knew it. He saw it. Tom Weber he was on cutting edge on what things were going on with sports information stuff. So, he would make things look sexy where we didn't necessarily have that before, but we never thought, 02 would go to Sweet 16. It wasn't until we had an MTE out in Vegas and we got beat. We beat Iowa State, a good Iowa State team, and we got beat by Bill Self's Illinois team and Frankie Williams and that group. And Harrington had to jam a 3-pointer into the basket, flipped up, and went down the high school gym. That's how they beat us. And after the game's over, we're disappointed to beat Illinois, but Coach Weber said the magic words: "Okay, cat's out of the bag. You guys are good. Now we got to start performing that way and make sure we understand it." Right after that, we played Indiana at home and we sold the place out. And it was, it was an Indiana team. We thought it was going to be Bob Knight coached and Mike Davis coached that team. They eventually got second. They were national runners up. We beat them in the arena. And that's when we started thinking we were pretty good. But then we go to George Mason. We're down at halftime. We had 3 shots in a row to get the thing flipped, and we go to somewhere. I think we went to Colorado State and got beat. And every time you get beat by a Colorado State, you think, whatever. But we get to the NCAA tournament. We beat a Bob Knight Texas Tech team, and I remember at halftime, it's like we were up. It's like, we'll see. I mean, it's Texas Tech, and Knight's coaching them. And but I look at the stat. His best 3 players have played 20 minutes in the first half, and I'm like, whoa, our depth is played. I'm not sure those guys could do it for 40. They could. And we handled them. And then we got really fortunate by beating Georgia, got beat by a phenomenal team, UConn team in the Sweet 16, Emeka Okafor and Karan Butler and a whole bunch of other pros. But then Jeff, we come back the next year with another great team. And we think, man, we just hope we can win the Valley. Right. And we go on and we get another at-large bid. And only in that 6-year run, only Chris Lowry's 06 team, his first head coaching position, did we win the conference tournament. Coach gets the Illinois job after the 04-03 season.
Yep.
Yeah, and then Matt Painter, and it's a no-brainer. I mean, Matt Painter's the coach. I have friends calling me today saying, 3 months after Coach Weber came on board, you were telling us that Matt Painter is different. And Matt Painter could see and he still does this. That painter has the ability to see 10 guys at one time. Most of us only see the ball and the guy guard. One of the best things Coach Weber did for me as an assistant, later I use it as a head coach, and I would help my assistant with this. He said, Rodney, you got to get your eyes off the ball in practice. And Jeff, that's no fun. But it helped me understand weak side defense. It helped me understand movement without the ball. And so he would get on me now. I mean, he should. And he was helping me be a coach. He was teaching me how to coach. And Coach Herron gave me more than he ever should have. And so, but Coach Weber, he had a plan for all of us on how to make us better coaches. And not only, and it helped our team, but I started watching the stuff going on. And when I broadcast with Luke Martin and hopefully with Mike Reese back before, I don't watch the ball that much. You have to, because you're calling every dribble and every play, and Luke has to and Mike had to. But as a play-by-play guy, I want to see what's going on the other side, because that's what's really going to cause the screw-ups or the success. And so it was those things that, again, was just part of how we built this thing. And Matt gets the job. And, Jeff, it was the most enjoyable 10 months I had ever been. Jack Owen was an assistant. Paul Luss came back as an assistant. He had gotten a D3 job, and I was there. And I'm telling you what, we had a blast. And we had a team. We won our first 17 non-conference games. That was a record at the time. Wichita went on to run the table later, but then we got beat by Greg McDermott's team in the last game of the season, their senior night, and we go 17-1. We end up getting Barry's team beat us with a zone in the second round of the tournament, Missouri State, but we get an at-large and we play Arkansas. And Stanford had just won their first game, and it wasn't a great Stanford team. And golly, we play
Alabama.
We play Arkansas.
Alabama?
I'm sorry, Alabama, and it was Mark Godfrey,
yes,
a Murray State coach, Mark
yes.
Godfrey, and we score a basket late to go up, and they come down, and Petaway takes it on himself. He had a lot of options to pass it, he didn't. And he makes a runner, and Mark Godfrey lives to see another day. And we really felt like we could have had a good success there. And then Matt gets the opportunity to do coach in waiting in his alma mater. Matt was very analytic about his profession. He knew where he could coach and the way he did things, and he knew what would work. And he really had a list of about 11 schools in the country that he would leave Southern Illinois for, and Purdue was one. But he took a job that needed some building, and Chris Lowry came back from Illinois to be the head coach, and I got a chance to stay on with him. And I will, we had a really good team in 2006, and we were very fortunate. We weren't going to the NCAA tournament had we not won the tournament, but we did. We beat a good Bradley team who I think went to the Sweet 16 that year. I think they beat Kansas, I think, and we play. In that year, we play St. Mary's, and they were just, it was Randy Bennett was still the coach. I mean, he was the coach then and doing a great job building that program. We go to Oklahoma City and play at the old Ford Arena, and we beat St. Mary's, Stetson Harrison, all those guys, and we get to play Oklahoma State, coached by Eddie Sutton, a good team, and we're up by 7. And as we're walking down the hallway together to our locker room, Oklahoma State was hearing about it from Eddie Sutton. And they had 13,000 people in orange shirts, I think, that were rooting for Oklahoma State. And we had about 3,000 in maroon that were definitely rooting for us. But that 13,000 was hard to overcome, and they beat us. But the next year, again, Jeff, it's not like we thought we were going to be great. As a matter of fact, just to belabor these 6 years and kind of wrap it up, sometimes a loss can really help you. Now, I never buy that you learn from losses, because you can learn from wins. But we go to an MTE at the Old Spice Classic down in the Milk House on Disney World in Florida. And our first game is against Arkansas. I'm mixing that up with Alabama. We play Arkansas. We play them tough, but they beat us in the first round. And we're disappointed that we're going to play for 5th rather than play for 1st. And we play a team coached by Jim Molinari, who had a long run at Bradley, and he was coaching Minnesota at the time, and we beat Minnesota, and they weren't very good. I mean, it was not a very good Minnesota team. And so we play a team, Virginia Tech, for 5th place, and okay, ACC, big deal, whatever. Really haven't hurt anybody on their team, and we beat them. And okay, we go 2-1, and that's what you really want to get out of an MT anyway. And good. We beat Virginia Tech. Don't think much of it until conference season comes around, and Virginia Tech starts beating a lot of good ACC teams, and they beat Duke at Virginia Tech. Whoa, that's pretty good. Then they beat North Carolina, and then they beat Duke again, and then they go on to win the ACC. And it's odd because had we beaten Arkansas, who knows who we would have played next. But by beating Virginia Tech, at that time, the RPI was the real thing. That just kept shooting our RPI out of the roof. And plus, it gave us reason, and we got good. And we had the bracket buster, which, gosh, I wish they'd bring back. And we beat a great Butler team, coached by Coach Licklider, who later on went to Iowa, a team that was formulated by Brad Stevens. And so that win for 5th place just made us. It kicked us into gear. And then we win the league. We don't win the conference tournament. We always said, well, if you win the league, you're not eligible to win the conference tournament. We somewhat joked, but we not so much. But again, going back to our 6-year run, Doug Elgin had so much to do with our league and how he built our league and how he helped our coaches schedule non-conference games and really get us to understand you don't take bye games, because once you get bought, they're just going to wait you out until September when you need a game. And you got to play good people, and you got to go on the road. Gosh, I look back on that 07 team that went to the Sweet 16, and to get there, we beat Virginia Tech again for the 2nd time. After beating Holy Cross, we were a 4 seed, Jeff. I mean, a 4 seed. We were ranked, I think, as high as, 14th. But Doug Elgin was so critical to not just us, our entire league. He was the reason why we're getting multiple bids. He taught us the formula, how to schedule, how to play, all those things. It was amazing. I got to say one last thing before we go to the next thing. Well, Matt did a magical job, and he had to take the Purdue job. Would have stayed had that not come up. But, there were great coaches at SIU, Jack Hartman and Paul Lambert, went to the Sweet 16 in 77, Coach Herron, Bruce Weber, Matt Painter. But I will say this, I'll say it publicly, and this isn't, I am reverence about Walt Frazier in the 67. They put us on the map, winning the NIT back then. I don't think anybody, or certainly an argument, and I'd argue loud, Chris Lauer did the best job of coaching a team of any coach at SIU. And Coach Hartman he's legendary. He's phenomenal. Bruce and Rich and Matt and Coach Lambert, they all did phenomenal jobs with their best teams. I'm not sure anybody got more out of their team than he was hard, man. Those practices were intense. And Jamal Tatum was a phenomenal player. He was on 7 Summer League NBA teams, and Tony Young and those names, Matt Shaw, and I hate to leave anybody out but Randall Falker and so on and so forth.
Darren Brooks.
But Darren Brooks was Stetson, and all those guys were just phenomenal. Of course, they didn't play in the 07 team, but what Chris did, golly, if anybody's coached better, their team better than him, you've done a magical job.
The 2005 run in Oklahoma City. I was there on the TV side covering you guys. And one of my favorite, I'm the only person in the world that probably will find it funny, is that you guys get Oklahoma State. And obviously you said it's 95% orange. It is a complete zoo in there. Well, Bucknell had upset Kansas in the opening round. So the second round game, the NCAA and the TV folks are hoping they get Wisconsin and Kansas. And instead it's Wisconsin and Bucknell. And when the game was over, the Oklahoma State game was over, that place emptied. I don't know that there was 2,000 people left in the building for that game. And I'll always remember the PA announcer going, "Don't forget, we have another game if you'd like to stick around and watch Wisconsin and Bucknell." And they're like, "Yeah, we're good. We're going to go celebrate the win." But all those Kansas people sold those tickets in a heartbeat after Bucknell ended up picking
Jeff,
them up.
you're a great host because you saved me on the 05. I was calling that the 06. In 06, we got John Beeline's team in Auburn Hills in Michigan. We got the West Virginia. We got Pittsnoggle and Gaines or whatever his name is, and they smoked us. They were really good. But thanks for the pickup on 05 with that team, and then 06 was different, but led to 07. But the point being with me, not one of those years did I enjoy the summer saying we're good, we're going to be an NCAA team.
Yeah.
You had to fight every year.
I know this is going to be like picking between your kids, and I'm not going to ask for favorites, but if you can pick me one from your 21 years and just say, if I'm this SIU program, the floor burn you, just the toughness, the fight, the grit, all of that stuff. If there is one Saluki that just represents the Saluki way, maybe more, that you're your number one draft pick to build just an SIU basketball program in the likeness that this thing has had for so long, who's it going to be?
Yeah, and this won't hurt anybody's feelings because no one can argue on this one. We take a kid out of Schaumburg High School who'd won a state championship. I'm telling you, the dude came to our campus, couldn't dribble with his left hand, and he was a guard, about 6 foot, and he had played for a phenomenal high school coach. And he's going to win the award over Mirko Pavlovic, who lived through a civil war from Serbia. But Tony Young is undoubtedly the one, and no one can argue that. I mean, Darren and Kent and all those great, Roland, and all those guys, they're going to have to agree because Tony, to the point, he redshirted his first year, and I said to Coach Weber, so that first year that Tony was a freshman. Man, he was hard. Tony was hard, and he was hard to coach. And he was hard-headed, and he was tough, and he was mean, and he was unskilled as a guard, and he was not fun to coach, okay? To the point where I walked in Bruce's office one day, and I go, Coach, when you three guys go recruiting, I'm not comfortable being on campus alone with Tony Young. He goes, you're crazy. Get out of here. I go, no, I'm kind of half serious here. This guy, holy cow. And so Chris Lowry was an assistant at the time with Matt, and Bruce was the guy. And so one time, man, we had it going. Chris and I would do the guards, and Matt and I'm not sure, whoever was down at the other end were doing the bigs. And so Chris had this thing, and we would have guards shooting from both ends and from both sides of the floor, and we had a rhythm. And Tony would get mad on it when he missed, and he missed a lot. Okay, he missed a lot of shots. And he'd get mad, he'd walk. And you can't walk. You got to keep the rhythm going. Yeah. So he'd walk. Finally, I took his ball and I rolled it outdoors, out the arena doors, and Coach goes and gets it, rolls it back, and I go, no, he's getting chair time. He's gonna act like a baby. We're gonna treat him like he's gonna sit on that chair. Oh, you guys are crazy. I go, no, he's hard to coach, man. But I'm telling you, that dude was tough, and we were hard on him. And he'd get on that Stairmaster, and we'd do beat downs, and whoa. And I'm telling you, that kid, he became skilled, and he became a knockdown shooter, and he got a left hand. But he got his chance when Matt was coaching. Bruce goes to Illinois. I think he was a sophomore this year. He didn't get much rip as a freshman, and so it's his sophomore year, and he's not getting any playing time in a non-conference. And he's mad, and he's guarding dudes. They talk about Walt Frazier in the year he sat, that his job was to disrupt the offense in the 66 team, and he did. And Tony Young was disruptive, and he was tough, and he'd go through you, and he'd fight you, and he'd bleed, and he would dive on the floor because he had something. He played for Bob Williams at Schaumburg, and Bob was a big part of this. And I always say, Tony grew up in the city of Chicago, and they moved out to Schaumburg. Tony not only knew what bullets looked like, he knew what they sounded like. And I'm not being funny about that. He grew up in a tough part of Chicago. And Bruce coached tough, and rebounding was big, and closeouts were big, and guarding guys are big. And Tony Young was smart. I'm talking about not having a left hand, not having a jumper. He was always smart. Business student and a real one. And he knew, look, I'm going to make you guys play me. I'm going to guard guys so hard, you're going to have to play me. But still, he couldn't crack it, couldn't crack the rotation until we had a guy get in some trouble, and he had to sit. And we're at Indiana State, and Tony Young comes in. And the first time he guards the ball, he picks up full court, the kid falls down. He falls down. Tony gets the ball, we get a layup. And it's like, we come for Royce Waltman calls a timeout. Tony Young gives us a look without saying it. You're not taking me out again. And he's the one. And so now it's like, if you other dudes want to play, you got to jump frog him. And every practice, he never took anything off. Ricky Cullum comes in this category as well on Bruce's first team. But Tony Young was the one that really, and he made it sexy. And there was some bleeding. There were no out of bounds lines. It was a mirror. Ed Thompson was at full staff work all the time as being the trainer. But Tony Young was the one person that made it non-negotiable.
Man, that era, there were some, to steal a phrase, some dogs that you would want in the foxhole, whether it was Young or it was Mullins or it was, to your point, Stetson and Jamal Tatum and Darren Brown. I mean, just guys that it's a fight. It's a 40-minute fight, and you know you're going to be in it. And there was a lot of folks that weren't all that excited to play the dudes in the ring. All right, closing up here. October the 24th will be the Hall of Fame ceremony. You'll be honored and inducted in with the class of 2025 there at SIU. Do we know who's inducting you yet? Have you made that decision?
Not yet. Hopefully my publicist, Bruce Weber, he's the one that's been pushing this thing forever. And I keep telling him, Coach, there's a lot of players need to go on long before me. And he said, oh, Rodney, you need to go in. You're there 21 years. And of course, he had been at Purdue forever too. And he knows what, that was a big part of his thing. And I'm really grateful to Coach Weber and Tom Weber. Bruce Weber and Tom Weber were not related, but they have a kindred spirit. And I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful to the committee at Thompson, who I spoke about, is on that committee as well. But and I mean the part about, that they have a category for coaches. And so that's where I fit into this thing. George Ubelt, to my knowledge, the only other assistant basketball assistant that's been in. Matt Painter's got to go in both as a head coach for 1 year, but 5 years previous. And I know that's in the works. But very grateful that, George Ubelt was a cornerstone to both Coach Hartman and Coach Lambert. He ended up being with Cindy Scott, finished his career with her great women's program as well. But that part means a lot to me. And I thought a lot about George Ubelt in throughout this thing. And recently, since I got the call from Tom Weber, I'm very grateful. And certainly it's the players that make you. And that's not cheesy coach speak. That's reality. And there are a lot of players. Actually, I was trying to get one player in for sure. There's several others that I'm going to work hard to get them in as well. But very grateful to even be recognized and appreciate those that think that 21 years with some really good people. And as I said to Bruce back in that first meeting, I don't know if I'm the part of the problem or part of the solution, but I hope that, maybe I can help be part of the solution in some way.